All right, we are live. What's up, party people? It's your host, Sunny Ray. This is the Sunny Ray Show. Thanks to our sponsors, Raz Rocket and GTM Ventures. Today, I'm joined with Haider. Am I saying your name correctly? Haider?
That's right.
Haider?
Yes, hi
Haider.
there.
Okay, Haider. So where are you calling in from today?
I'm in Switzerland actually, beautiful sunny Switzerland next to Lausanne, so just between Geneva and Lausanne. Yeah.
Very cool. Very cool. Yeah, no, I visited many years ago, but definitely due time. I got to take the family out there. So, Hader, like I was saying, Hader, I like to kick off by just maybe sharing a line or two about the company that you're building today. Yeah, tell people what Allegory Capital does, and then we'll put that on ice for a little bit, and then come back to it in about 10-15 minutes.
For sure. First of all, Sonny, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to end the week, a busy week, with talking to a fellow entrepreneur and innovator like you. So my name is Haider, and I represent a firm called Allegory Capital, which is what I call a data-driven VC focused on regulated industries, which has a particularity to bridge the Western European scene with the US. That's pretty much how we could define ourselves.
Interesting. I'm a bit hesitant to ask you this next question, and you can pass if you don't, but you started coding at the age of 12.
Yeah.
What was it that first pulled you into programming, and what were you building as a teenager in the early internet era?
So it was so first of all, when I started to code, I didn't even know it was code because I just got, I don't know, for many people maybe it started like that. My dad was bringing old computer from his work. He was working at Master Foods, this giant Nestle competitor, and I got a lot of computers, and those computers came with books about Fortran, COBOL, Pascal, very rubbish old school code framework. And so because I didn't know, what it was, and they were just configured for that, so I started to basically play with those computers. And I had maybe 3-5 computers, and I started to mix them up and code just because this was what was written in the book. I thought it was a recipe to make it work. And slowly but surely, I started to discover that something new was called, the web, and from HTML, PHP, like the classical, era, of the web developers, era, before all this DevOps era. So yeah, I started like that. But I would say, yeah, I understand how to code. I understand also the principle, but yeah, I'm not coding anymore, if that makes sense, right? So.
Of course. But I always find these like backstories interesting, fascinating. How people land where they are. And so at the age of 16, you were freelancing in web development, and eventually
Correct. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So basically, what happened to me is I started to, with some friends, I'm not alone, right? We were a group of people who just like tech, and we were meeting, and we identified actually that some people wanted to have a corner on the internet called an HTML page, and we just happened to know how to build, the very first shops, and that kind of thing. And yeah, we ended up building a small agency with some of my friends. And funny enough, it was in France, in the east of France, and we started, our first customers were politicians. So we started to basically do campaigns and websites. And I think I was one of the first in France, in my area at least, to do pure SEO performance-based campaign. So basically, if you're the first on Google, you pay us. Otherwise, you don't pay us. So it was very much performance-driven from day one. Yeah.
And then, is it true that you also worked on open source projects like WordPress back in the day?
Yeah. So because of some of the things that we didn't have from the community, and how the open source community is, with some of my friends, we started to basically just build themes and modules and plugins and that kind of thing. So and that actually helped. I remember, having coded with my friends some of the first WordPress themes in the magazine section, and all the some WordPress multi-site plugins back in the day. So yeah, but nothing really like fancy. It was basically purely to have a foot in the community and to help us do what our agency needed to do. Yeah.
And then you went on to earn a master's in industrial management rooted in Kaizen and Lean Six Sigma, right? So, a very engineering oriented path for someone who would go on to become, kind of like a brand and marketing innovator. How did that systems thinking mindset, shape everything you built later?
So actually, that's one of my inflection points. If I have to find, so everyone, I guess, in their career, I think I have now 40 years old, and I have like 20 years of experience, right? So I started very early, calling what I do today a job, and I started around 19 to actually call it a job, even if it was outside of my studies. But in France, I don't know if some of your audience is from France or from the Western European side, you cannot basically choose really freely where you want to go. So if you have a tech background, for example, like I had, the only way to go up into the educational program is to go to the engineering side. And I didn't want it to stop and just be a network guy who built, or maintain systems. I wanted to basically learn, and I wanted to, to lead, and I wanted to have like a bit of a drive. And the only solution was to go to an engineering school, which I did. And it was awesome because I discovered all that, industrial engineering, those factories that needs to be automated. It was fascinating. Even more fascinating is because it was in the automotive era, and I worked. My first internship was in an automotive company. They used a lot of Japanese methodology to scale, and I loved it. I said, "Wow, yeah, actually, this is systematic approaches that helps you really control the quality of an outcome." And it makes sense, right? When you start applying and reading and diving into those systems, you see Six Sigma everywhere. Like the water you're drinking needs to be clean to drink. There is a Six Sigma pattern there. 99% of your time you're not getting sick because there is a systematic approach to it to make it so. The planes, when there is no war, but the planes are, flying and coming back. That's also a Six Sigma pattern. You're controlling a system to react in a predictable way and to minimize, the waste, right? So, by having that background, which was interesting, and working on the side with my agency with more and more people doing e-commerce, marketing, communication people, I saw a huge gap between the engineering world, the IT world, which was super structured with those methodologies, and a world that was super chaotic, which was marketing and communication and sales. And I said to myself, hold on a second, potentially, this could be applicable, like scaling the way a brand needs to go on multi-channel. We could build a system out of this, to structure it, or making sure that 80 countries for a brand will actually not niche a positioning and actually position a message the right way. That also is a systematic approach. So I started to work a lot on that model to scale what a global team or what a founders team can actually achieve when they reach that scalability pattern. Yeah.
Fascinating. And then you worked at Accenture, where you bridged marketing with pharma giants like Novartis and Novo Nordisk. So what surprised you most about the pharmaceutical industry when you first entered it? And what made it different from everything else you'd seen?
Pharma is interesting in the sense that it has an appetite for external parties to come and help compared to banks, where it is, at least from what I've seen with the banking industry or the insurance industry, everything is inside, in-house. They are very protective at what they can outsource. With pharma, and if you're a consultant, it's quite easy to get a very sizable and interesting project to work on. And they're very open about letting someone else with a different view working on that. And I was coming from an engineering background with this kind of quality mindset, which is important if you're a regulated industry. I was working first on the SOPs, the governance of some systems, for the medical legal, compliance processes. And for me, it was not a surprise, from coming from the automotive industry and jumping into pharma. yeah, of course, you have quality systems and you need to respect them, and you have a little bit more lawyers than in the automotive industry, watching on your back, but that was fine. What was more surprising is the speed, which is super slow. So when you see regulated industry, I think for the pharma industry is surprisingly slow. And from the first years I started to now, I'm still very shocked at the way commercial operations are not challenging the status quo or trying to reinvent. It's a lot of a check the box culture. We have a brand plan. We need to basically do a congress. We need to do a campaign, and basically everyone check the box. They don't have this data driven culture about the commercial side. They have it on the sales, right? They look at the margin and the profitability, the market share, and so on. But from a marketing perspective, not so much. And that is quite surprising from a company or from an organization and industry that is living out of clinical data for a living. So the commercial side of pharma, yeah, pretty slow. Lots of opportunity to transform it, obviously. But it's a giant that is moving slow.
Let's maybe switch gears a little bit and talk a little bit about like kind of the aha moment, right? So what was the specific moment or frustration that made you decide to step out on your own and launch? Is it Kainju? Am I pronouncing it correctly?
Yeah. So
Kainju in 2012, rather than continue climbing the corporate ladder.
So in my sense was that if you want to shape a vision, and I think the time was right for that, at that time at least, I was feeling ready to really find the purpose, which for me I have since I started in this career, is really to transform the regulated industries in becoming something else, right? To focus on that journey, of transforming with something into something else. And when you do it with another firm, I think you need to bend the knee and respect the chain of command and understand the values and purpose of organization. But you always have sometimes this itch to say, I could have done it better or differently if we were like free of the politics, the vision, and so on. So, and I understood that if you understand how the industry works, and you are a kind of an agent of change that can come inside those organizations and change them with a different drive, a different culture, that could actually help them really to transform. So that's basically what I've done. I started this firm with my clients. Actually, I had clients who said, "Yeah, if you're launching this, we will follow it." And I was lucky enough to have great people around me that trusted me with this vision. Yeah.
And the name Kainju is inspired by Kaizen, right? The Japanese philosophy of continuous improvement. So how deeply does Japanese culture and methodology influence the way you run your business day to day?
So it's interesting you say that. So a lot of people who, when they apply or they join us, they say, "Oh, it's interesting. They use Japanese theme as a branding just for fun, and it's like a gimmick." It's actually not a gimmick. If people start to enter our organization, they will see that the methodology we use, the way we work, the values we bear, in every day, are basically wired in that Kaizen mindset and that Six Sigma mindset. So in the company that we cherish, it's been actually alive for a lot of years, despite COVID, despite a lot of changes and so on. It's because we try to be that nimble agent, right? So we are not trying to create just just one thing that will capture market share and we'll sell it in 5 years. We were really trying to say, will the world miss us if we didn't exist it? And if not, what should we bring to the table so that the world actually misses us, right? To really care and bring that value. So yes, Six Sigma, Kaizen, and it's embedded in the name, right? The name means emotion through continuous progress. And we believe that brands, which is the vehicle we want to impact, can actually transform into an experience platform. And that requires a different drive that we can set up and bring those organizations. Yeah.
Very cool. And so you also describe Kainju as a brand tech firm, right? Not just a pure agency, not a pure tech consultancy. Like what gap did you see in the market that nobody else was filling? Like what were clients getting wrong?
So I can tell you what my client says about us when they basically, and this is why Allegory Capital is also existing on as a sister organization in a way. If you look at consulting firm, they are great, right? They are basically working with the C-levels, and they are thinking on how to, where to play, where to win. They call themselves a strategic thinker. But whatever is in the slide is usually appealing to the C-level, maybe C-level -2, and it stays in the slide. Is the middle managers, they basically will use someone else to do it. And on the ground, they will have potentially cheap agencies who will do the job. So we feel that we are the right clutch going from strategy to delivery because we come from the industry. We understand. We can take actually some risk to really play with the same rules of our clients, like indexing our fees on the objective of our clients, which is pretty rare, for consulting firm. And compared to, on the other side, operational agency, creative digital data, whatever you mean. At some point, some people now realize it, that you cannot have 60 agencies. You cannot have 60 pure players doing basically one thing super well. So when you look at SEO agencies, now SEO agencies are AI SEO or AI search agencies. And if you're a brand like L'Oreal, or if you're a brand like Novartis, whatever, you cannot have like 200 agencies. So what will be the limit, right? You cannot have like 5 consulting firm and 50 agency on the record. So basically what we do, which is different, is we actually build teams. So we are going to set up what goes from 0 to 1 with our consultants. And then on the operational side, we are going to recruit a team, maybe for 1 year or 2 on our payroll. And after 2 years, basically, we will switch it over to the payroll of our clients. So in a way, we are losing people, right, that we train and that we cherish and we transfer our culture. But this loss is also the transformation item that we give back to the companies. And actually, a lot of times, those people are becoming our clients because they basically were eating the methodology we were teaching them for so many years. So usually if we've done a good job, they're going to call us back. That's basically what my company does.
So you kind of alluded to this, but after a decade of building Kainju into one of Europe's, fastest growing brand consultancies for regulated industries, you launched Allegory Capital in 2022. So what did a decade on the consulting side teach you about kind of where the real leverage was, and why invest rather than just consult?
Yes. So Allegory Capital didn't came from a willingness to build a venture capital arm or anything like that. Actually, it came again with our clients. At some point, they asked ourselves, and usually that's how it starts. We fix the legacy old molecules, that are basically 15 years old and will be generic in 5 years, for example. And they want to use digital activities to make sure they have a line of business that pays the lights, And usually when they do this, they will switch the people who are working on the old molecules to the new launches, right? So that's how basically they see us as a way to change the gravitas of their teams to the new launches. And then when we've done that job well, what happens is they're going to ask us, hey, by the way, you have could you actually help us on those people who we just switch over to the new launches to actually improve their impact with digital marketing or better communication, whatever. And there is another piece that is missing to this equation, is differentiation with services and technology-driven services. Because most of the brands right now, they are not just a product. They are basically in a platform for, as I said, more experiences. And as a brand, you cannot just live out of content for long. You need to bring innovation, like service innovation, to your mix. And this is where people will ask themselves, should I create a department with IT and developers and that kind of things to build a tech product? But those companies, especially in pharma, they don't have the culture to build tech product. So, and this is what I started to work on around 2015, 2016, is to basically say to the industry, maybe we should not build and maybe just buy or invest in the ecosystem of innovation that is sitting outside. And instead of doing competition with startups that are faster, maybe they will understand better, what you're doing. Maybe there is a world where you can partner with the ecosystem of innovation. You can actually invest in the ecosystem and you can actually shape it. And guess what? You're doing it every day with the biotech. So I don't know if you follow what Pharma does, but Pharma basically, from an R&D perspective, they have a myriad of, biotech startups that they watch. And when the startups is getting kind of mature, the big pharma companies, they buy them to actually put them in their pipeline, for their R&D pipeline, and basically focus on the commercial side of the compound they just acquired. So that basically is, I said to myself, why don't we do it also with tech and digital health? And that's how Allegory Capital started, because the problem pharma has is when they buy a company of 100%, usually there is a risk they kill it because of the slow pace they have. And so because you cannot invest in one company and globalize it, usually you need to have a portfolio approach. You need to invest in the US, you need to invest in China, you need to invest in France, right? You cannot have a startup that will fit all the cases, or it's very rare. So that's why, because of the geographic expansion and of your value chain, you need a portfolio. And because of the business from pre-diagnostic to treatment and adherence, you need a portfolio. That's why it's a natural call to have an external agent that can actually invest on their behalf and actually raise the value of those assets so that they can be fit for purpose for the business, but also for their corporate venture if they want to acquire them later.
You've also written that the hardest truth AI implementation revealed in 2025 is that that wasn't the bottleneck, that in fact people and culture were, right? Is that something you wrote about? I was reading, and so can you speak to that a little bit? When did that realization hit personally, and did it change how you deploy capital or advise clients?
So, this whole field that we call artificial intelligence is not new, right? We've been seeing digital twins for many years in the factories. We've seen automation in many years in different fields. It just became like hyped, and it's dangerous when you have hype because you're building expectations, and people usually have a difficult time to follow and really understand what's in it for me. With AI, what we feel, it's not a technology burden that we have, or the technology debt that we have to care about. It's about the people, the culture of understanding what's going to be the next definition of how people will collaborate on different systems. And I was vocal many years ago to say the world where enterprises will automate businesses, with AI to AI business model, or application to application business model, is going to be a subject. And potentially you're going to have more business made through application to application than B2B or B2C or B2B2C, right? So that basically is something I was very vocal on many years ago. And when this shift with ChatGPT and Claude and everything came on, and the hype actually was felt, a lot of people were saying, is this the train I need to be on? Is this another train I need to be on? Like, I don't know, metaverse or blockchain. We heard those trains coming. And in the case of AI, I think there will be two types of companies. The companies that will actually understand the rails they need to build to actually adopt and scale these new types of technologies. And you will have the company that will just do an MVP, a POC, and they will basically just surf on the wave until it becomes mainstream. And who will make it mainstream for them is going to be Amazon Web Service, Microsoft, Snowflake, Salesforce, right? So from the big company perspective, I think you have really two types of tiers. The ones that really understand the value and they are going to build an ecosystem or a layer of application on top of it, and the one that are going to be like users, not creators. Yeah.
I don't, by the way, I have lots more questions, but I know we're getting kind of like near the end of our time. Can you maybe help us land the plane by addressing the title, which is why big pharma can't innovate, or maybe it can be a bit of a teaser for maybe part 2 when we do it a couple weeks down the road?
For sure. So the interesting bit with the pharma innovation topic is that usually when you look at the expenditure of innovation spending, right, pharma is coming near second after the technology industry, and it was actually first many years before the tech boom. And the difference we see with the culture of innovation within pharma is having an iterative approach to innovation. They know what to innovate on for the next 20, 40, maybe sometimes 100 years. They know what are the challenges scientifically to tackle some diseases. They just are researching the best way to make it safe and efficient for the patient, right? But in the tech world, innovation is quite disruptive, right? It's kind of this gigantic big bang that is messy and not structured, and the opportunities are taken in 3 months, 6 months, not 20 years. So I think the industry is not wired culturally to capture innovation in the same way. It's resilient in different form, and I think that's what makes it sometimes seen as a sleeping giant, right? And I think that's people like me, or again, I know a lot of people in the industry that are trying to do the same. We're trying to create the middleware between the tech innovation world that is super fast, super disruptive, where we could actually see the opportunities to bring that closer to the mothership of pharma companies who needs to be reinsured with that slow pace, that iterative innovation kind of vibe. Yeah.
So if a founder came to you today and said, I want to build the next generation of kaiju, what would you tell them, is a real moat in this space? And what would you warn them will nearly break them along the way?
I will tell them I feel myself as a founder, right? If you look at what people always tell me every day since almost 20 years is, we don't understand what you're doing. It makes no sense. How do you do it, right? And I understood very quickly that the more people tell you, they don't understand what you do, it means you're on something quite interesting. And I kept that, right? I don't want to basically build what people expect me to build. I'm basically having a vision. I'm having a cap, that I want to follow. The only source of truth for me is what the customer is willing to do, what the investor is willing to invest on. And that is the transfer of value that keeps you on your toe, right? If you have your customer or investors, next to you, and your vision is somewhat weird for your entourage, that's okay, actually. You're going to have a path. What is the next advice I can say is focus always on your top line. Bottom line will be a private equity conversation later on when you're big. But whether you're small or you're mid-size or you're big, when you don't have a strong top line activity, when your basically sales are not that strong and your growth is not that strong, you have only one problem, is to keep sales floating and your recurrent revenue coming. If you have like EBITDA to optimize, to adjust, that's problems. That's a rich guy problem.
Cool, man. Well, that was awesome. Thank you so much. I see we have 24 people synced in, and okay, sounds good. Let's bring this one to an end, and I will see you on the other side, Haider. Just hold back for a second.
Thank you.
Until next time, everyone.